Hi and welcome back to Fire and Maneuver. In this video, I will talk about formations. So in the last video, we talked a bit about controls, and in that video tutorial, we actually moved up some of our troops in marching column, and then switched them out into line formation. So you guys got to see a little bit about how to utilize formations, but we didn't really explore the open order formation, the square formation, or attack column. So I'm hoping to do a deeper dive today into what the formations do, when to use them, why to use them, and how you can use them situationally. So here I've loaded up a battle, and I've got my forces deployed kind of evenly across my front line. And the first thing that I would recommend is to take a look at the map. In this case, we can see we're pretty far away from the enemy. The enemy here has deployed in marching columns, but they're a bit far away from the road here. In this case, if we're this far away, we may want to utilize this road that we've got in our deployment phase. So I might take these two units, click right in the middle, bring them over. And what I may do now is click on this Formations tab, and I'm going to put them into the March Column formation. So March Column is an infantry maneuver formation. It has no frontage and inflicts no range or charge damage. So you can't use this formation offensively or defensively, really. It's just used for movement. Your speed is set to 2, and the unit is range and charge vulnerable. So you're going to take more damage. It's a +1 to your damage when you're shot and when you're charged. March Column gains 1 additional movement point, movement speed when traversing road tiles, and it can move diagonally. So this formation gets 2 movement when it's on a road, and it gets +1 to that 2 movement when it's using the road movement here. So normally, if I'm off the road, I can just move 2 tiles, which is already better than the default line formation. But if I'm on a road, I can use 3 tiles movement. And notice how this road bends. That's no problem for my march column because I can actually utilize diagonal movement. So I should be able to go 1, 2, 3 with this unit, which is quite good. But again, I don't want to deploy too close to the enemy because I am vulnerable. One thing I did for this video is I picked a faction which utilizes the efficiency trait quite a lot. So you can notice this orange trait on almost all my units here, and that means I can move and change formation in 1 turn. I get 2 maneuver orders with efficiency. So I would say in 99% of cases, if you've got a maneuver-oriented faction, such as the Confederacy or Prussia, you should always deploy in marching column because you can easily get out of marching column all in 1 turn. You don't need to wait another turn and leave yourself vulnerable. So changing formations is the most important for factions that utilize efficiency. If you're not changing formations often, you might as well not play those factions or not bring units with efficiency. The whole point of efficiency is utilizing your movement with different formations all in 1 turn and being unpredictable to your enemy. While for a normal unit, it could take a whole turn to change formation, then another turn to move. For an efficient unit, you could jump up and change formation and shoot that enemy all in a single turn, and they might not be able to predict that. So that's the main advantage of this efficiency trait. Looking at artillery, you can see I don't have formations, so that's not applicable. And cavalry at this moment does not have formations, although in the future we're thinking of adding like a dismounting button for the cavalry. But for now, you really don't have to worry about formations with cavalry and artillery. Cavalry cannot use the road movements, they just naturally get 2 or 3 speed. Artillery, however, can utilize road movements, but they don't need to be in a different formation. So in this case, this line of artillery can go 2 tiles a turn if it's utilizing the road. So I'm going to confirm my deployment, and the first thing I'll do is, again, I'll take these march columns, move them up, probably put them right on the road here, and then you could even change them straight into line. I might not do that yet until I'm a little closer to the enemy. I want to form a battle line on this road. This march column, I'm just going to move directly ahead. Notice I only moved 1, 2 tiles, but when the majority of my movement was on the road, I could go 1, 2, 3. And so for these guys here, I can go diagonal, and I could even pull right next to them if I wanted to, but I think I'll just go diagonal right behind them. And the artillery can go 1 and 2, so that's quite good. And the last unit I can move is my cavalry, which I'll move 3 tiles diagonal. Diagonal movement is actually faster than forward or back movement because of the way the tiles work. So we're actually using an octagonal tile system, which in reality is a square tile system. These are no different than squares. The reason they're octagons is just the edges here are kind of shaved off so you can see directions easier. So I can see this guy is clearly facing this direction just because of the way this octagon is kind of formed. But functionally, these are the same as squares. So if you do the math, diagonal movement is always faster. Notice this invisible square right there that I'm skipping over to go diagonal, that is the movement bonus I'm basically getting by traveling diagonal. So cavalry is quite swift, and march column is swift as well. We're going to end our turn and then watch to see what the enemy does. So we're just moving forward, and the enemy is moving all of their marching columns forward. Now I anticipate they're going to be getting into line shortly, because I am going to push my troops up very quickly because of that efficiency. So you'll notice here, with these troops, I'm going to continue going down the road, make a turn, and you know what? Here's what we'll do. We will have the front line keep moving forward, the reserve line move into the farm, and then form into line formation. So that's our next formation here. That's the close order formation. It's the default formation of line infantry. It has frontal and peripheral frontage, so that means you can fire directly forward and on your 2 diagonals. And it inflicts 2 base damage when it shoots. The speed is set to 1, and the unit doesn't have vulnerabilities or resistances. It's just the default unit. Any infantry unit can use this formation, but you can see here it's most effective in the Age of Glory. So in this game we've got 2 ages, Age of Glory, which is mostly like rifles and smoothbores, and the Age of Rifles, which is the late period in which breech loaders become popular. If you have units with breech loaders firing 2 shots at you, and they've got 2 base damage, they're going to be inflicting double the damage. That's 4 damage each turn. And so line formation's not as useful in the late period when you have breech loaders. Instead, you might want to adopt a more modern tactic in spacing your troops out, which is called open order formation. This is going to reduce your damage received by 1. It's the equivalent to using cover in the game. Now, keep in mind, when your cohesion hits 0, you no longer get this bonus, so you need to retain your cohesion to utilize open order formation. You also can fire on your sides. You can fire peripherally on your diagonals, and you can fire on your sides, so your range frontage increases. And so if you pair open order up with breech loaders and rifling, if you have those 2 traits, your peripheral vision extends massively, your sides extend massively, and you're reducing damage received. So Age of Rifles is very good. Oh, the timer's going out for me. Okay, let me jump into a line formation, get my guys on fire at will, jump the rest of the troops forward. 2 seconds left. Okay, yeah, just managed to do everything. So these units are going to move into that farm. They're going to form line. And notice the enemy's forming line because they know that I'm getting close here. And they do not want to risk it. And they've got artillery. They're kind of shuffling around in the back line, trying to probably get it more toward the road on the flank there. Okay, so again, this line formation is probably the smarter decision here because they don't have any breech loaders that they can bring. They've just brought an army of militia this battle. But that open order formation is great because with rifles, you'll notice, I can show you with this unit here. Let's see. Give him... Notice here, look at the range. It's incredible. The issue, though, is while I do have a rifle and I'm benefiting a lot to put my riflemen in open order, I can only shoot once, and my base damage in open order is only 1. So if you've got breech loaders and rifles, you can double up your damage to get it back to 2, whilst reducing the damage you received and utilizing further range. This makes Age of Rifles a little more complex. There's more strategy involved, or more tactics, I should say, with the amount of formations you've got to be switching back and forth to, depending on weaponry. So again, if you're new, I would recommend the Age of Glory, where you're really just fighting in line formations. It's more of a Napoleonic style of fighting. But if you get used to the game and you're feeling more confident in it, you can try the Age of Rifles, and there you've really got to play around with the formations. As a general rule, I would say if you're dealing with breech-loaded infantry, to really utilize the open order formation, or in the early period, if you've got rifles and range drill, then the open order formation is also quite useful. So in this case, we'll just keep them in open order, why not? And we're going to have these guys jump around on the flank. And you can see here I'm using my efficiency. Jump forward and switch to line in 1 turn. Then I'm going to shoot them. And these troops are going to spread out along the road, forming a battle line. Have these guys to go down the road. And again, using that efficiency, I'm going to pop these guys into line and already have my battle line formed up. So that's very advantageous. If you're not utilizing that, then each unit goes up in price for each of these perks it has added to it. And if you pay for all of these units to have that perk and you're not utilizing it, then it's a waste of money. With all of these perks combined, I could have had more infantry. So if this isn't a perk that you think is quite useful to you and you don't want to micromanage the efficiency, then I would not bring these units or play as this faction. So we can see I'm kind of pushing up there. They're trying to adjust their line because they see most of my forces are concentrated on their flank. I assume the AI is trying to be like, hey, I'm being outflanked, I gotta move these units over. Alright, the next thing we can do that I can show you is the last two formations, which is attack column and the square. So here I'm going to grab these guys into an attack column. The attack column formation is an infantry assault formation. It has frontal but no peripheral vision. So you'll notice if I put these guys into an attack column, they can only shoot directly ahead. So it's very limiting. I'm going to cancel that order. Good. And then we will keep continue reading here. All right, speed is set to 2, so it's kind of like March Column. You get the 2 speed, but you don't get that +1 extra speed on a road. So attack column can be a good alternative to using March Column if you don't want to be quite as vulnerable. You're still range vulnerable, you're still going to take extra damage when you're shot, but you don't have that charge vulnerability anymore. So it's a more offensive faction and a slight alternative to Marching Column, but you're not going to go as fast on roads. As a rule of thumb, if there's no roads on the whole map and you need to move fast, then March Column is your best formation to use. Charge damage is also increased by 1 point, so it's really good for charging. And it only does 1 base damage when you shoot, so it's not good at firing, it doesn't have good range capabilities, but it's mobile and it's good for charging. And this is its best in the Age of Glory in the early period, because moving in dense columnar formations in the late period, when you're taking extra vulnerability damage, is not a good idea. And because this formation thrives in melee, and the late period has a lot of long-range weapons, long-range modern artillery, long-range rifles, you're not going to be using melee and charging as much in the late period, so that means attack column kind of goes down in usefulness and is surpassed by the open order. But in this case, the enemy's got no modern weapons, so we can jump into an attack column and then charge them right on their flank. Let's move these troops over, put them in line, have them fire, move these troops up, fire, fire, and we're going to destroy that unit. And let's see how it plays out. So we are going to jump into an attacking column. The enemy's going to try to engage me. They don't want to they don't want me to advance and stack my damage up, but I'm going to charge this unit on the side, and we can notice there it's got 1 HP left. It's because I'm bringing that attack column, that +1 damage, hitting them on the side. I don't even have any melee-oriented perks, but outflanking them and hitting them on the side is going to do a lot of damage, especially with that attack column formation. So we can see the enemy's kind of trying to push their line forward and engage, but I'm already beginning that envelopment on their left side, and they didn't have that efficiency perk, so they really could not respond as rapidly. And if we zoom out, you can notice how much of the board I've taken compared to the enemy here. The last formation that we're going to cover once this turn is finished is the square formation. So you can notice here this unit is going to be surrounded by the enemy, and if these enemy units were cavalry, I might be worried I'm going to be charged. I might grab this unit and put him into the square. So the square formation is an infantry anti-cavalry formation, but it also works against infantry charges. It has full frontage. You can shoot 360, but you only do 1 base damage, so your range damage is decreased. Speed is 0, you can't move. And the unit receives range vulnerability and charge invulnerability. So when it's shot at, you're going to take extra damage, but when you're charged, you don't take any impact damage. So really good to withstand enemy charges, but really vulnerable. Your speed is 0, your damage is lower when you shoot, and when you get shot, you take extra damage. So if you know the enemy's bringing a lot of ranged weapons, this is a bad formation to use. But if they've got a lot of melee-oriented troops, attack columns, and cavalry, this is a good formation. There's some other uses you can use for it that are situational. If you put a soldier on a hill, and he's well protected, you could put him on a square formation, or if he's in a building, you could put him in square, and you're not going to take the penalty damage, and you're going to utilize that 360 vision. So that can also be useful. In this case, just for the example, I'll go into square, assuming the enemy might charge me. And notice I can shoot 360. I'll fire at him, knock this guy out, take him out, charge around the flank, take this guy out, kill him, and then we will have this unit go into, let's use marching column, move on to that road, and then swing around and charge the enemy artillery. So I'm jumping into a square. I get shot, so you can see how much damage I took, because if you're shot in square formation, you take that penalty damage. Notice I only did 1 damage too, so really not a good range formation. And yeah, I'm being torn apart here by the enemy line formations, but luckily I'm swinging around their flank, and they wiped out those Louisiana Tigers. Got some back shots on the enemy. And there's my march column getting ready to go take care of that artillery before it hits me in the back which I know the enemy's going to do at the start of the next turn. So I'm probably going to lose that unit, but I am going to respond to it quickly. And look at this. Move right into line formation and fire. Tell this guy to finish off the enemy, and move down the line. I'll tell this guy to hop in an attack column and move down. Actually, you know what? Let's go march, and we will shoot down the whole road, and then get ready for an envelopment there. And then that's when the cavalry can come in, and why not move the artillery up too, that we forgot about. So you can see the Confederacy here as a faction as well is quite aggressive, because you're really wanting to use that. Oh, they turned their artillery to try to meet me there. They don't want me to charge them. I'm still going to get that. And they shot me in the back, finished off my unit, and then turned to meet me. So you can also notice some AI improvements from the original release of the game as well. And honestly, even though the AI is losing in this case, I don't blame them because they've got a whole army of militia. So yeah, they were never going to win this fight anyways. And that is because I edited the enemy's force beforehand. It's not like the AI would naturally just bring in only a few units of militia against this build that I'm bringing here. Alright, and then we are moving up our artillery over there, and we're all good. There we go. So let's finish off the enemy. Let's do a charge. Now, artillery is vulnerable to charges, so you're always going to get a +1 even if you frontally charge them. So knocking them out here, it's probably the best idea. We might get hit with canister shot on the charge, but we're just going to have to do it. We'll fire at the enemy here, fire there, form into line, fire at him, and then have this guy go in for the back charge. There we go. And we've got an envelopment happening in the center. So I know they're going to fire at me. Are they going to hit me? Oh, they didn't hit me in time. I lucked out. I fire into the enemy front there. Oh, they're trying to push up to meet me. They see that I've got a vulnerable marching column, so they're gonna get the bonus damage on me. So maybe I should have prioritized that order. We are going to still move him up though. Actually, no, he just fires into line. And then this guy, I think, is gonna try the charge, even though the enemy's moved. Let's see if he can do it. He's gonna run up, search for the enemy, and he finds him. And we land the charge. And the enemy is going to break soon. We're going to pull them out of the charge soon. There we go. And then fire on them to finish them off. Finish off this enemy here. And there we go. Yes, sir. Alright, and I think we'll wrap it up there. You guys don't need to see me clean up the enemy. Unless the game ends here, we'll see, because I've killed a large percentage of their force. But hopefully that gives you some insight onto when to use marching column, attack column, the open order, which is a little more niche. I'd say it's more useful in the late period. Line formation's your default, of course. And then square is just good if you know the enemy's going to charge you. It's going to negate any of that charging damage. So again, I hope this was useful. And next time, I think the video tutorial I'm going to do next is on terrain. So join me next time and we'll talk about how to utilize terrain. Thank you.